Hey, do you want to know 5 easy ways to fund your next development? You do? Great. Well, keep watching because I'm going to tell you how to do that. Hi, my name's Kevin Wright and I've been brokering property finance for over 20 years, whether it's simple buy-to-let mortgages or multi-million pound development loans or anything in between. And I'm going to give you 5 simple steps. So let's crack on. Now, like quite a few of the videos I record, they come from questions that people ask me. And this one's no different, and it came from someone looking for advice on development funding. Now, here was their situation. They've been offered a project that already had planning permission to convert 4 barns into residential property, plus a new build as well. They've been offered the purchase price at £750,000 with a gross development value, or GDV, of 3.5 million. Now, there were 3 people involved in this, including the person that asked me the question. And he'd been offered a chance to get into this deal if he would put up a third of the required money. Now, the attraction for him was he'd got a few buy-to-lets, but this was his opportunity to break into development and effectively piggyback on the development experience of the other 2 partners in the deal. Now, in my Ninja Investor Program training, I talk about piggybacking a lot. In fact, I've got a saying for it: piggyback for what you lack, which actually means this. Look, if you want to get into a deal, but you lack the experience to get lenders to give you the money to do it, buddy up with someone that has got the experience that you lack. Usually you'd form an SPV or a limited company where you're a shareholder in with the people with the experience. And then as brokers, we can take you to, in this case, a development finance lender. And as a company, even if not as an individual, you've now got credibility. Now, this guy didn't have his third share of 250 grand of the 750 purchase price. So he needed to borrow that some way. Plus the 3 of them also needed to borrow the build and conversion costs. And he asked me what would be the best way to borrow this money. So for barn conversions and a new build, well, this is development finance, pure and simple. And development finance is pretty much a does what it says on the tin kind of thing, isn't it? You've got a development that you want to build out and you need to finance it. So it's development finance. Now, these tend not to be the big major banks. They used to be involved in it, but they got out and exited that market back in the credit crunch of 2008 and 9 and have never really had an appetite to get back into it since. Now, you may have heard the saying, nature abhors a vacuum. So in the absence of the big high street banks, challenger banks, if you want to use that term, stepped in and filled that void, and they've been funding developments since 2008-9. Now, from a development finance lender's standpoint, here's the main thing they want to know. Are you going to give us our money back? Now, the ease with which they foresee you're going to pay them back influences A, if they're going to lend, B, how much they're going to lend, and C, at what rate they're going to lend it. Now, this guy having a few buy-to-let lenders, that's not going to cut any ice with development lenders. What they want is new build or significant conversion experience. Now, being an experienced landlord, even if you've done a few refurbs, doesn't equip you to do a major conversion or new build. Now, if you just want to do a single unit new build, some of the development finance lenders are still not going to play ball, but there may be a development lender that wants to take a punt on you. What they're not going to do, however, is something as substantial as 4 barn conversions plus a new build to someone that's never done development before. Why is that? Well, simply, experience has taught them that when they lend on those sort of bases, the chances are the borrower is going to get in over their head, screw up the project part way through, and the lender is going to step in, put an asset manager in to project manage it through to completion. Now, although they can do that, they clearly don't want to do that. And the easiest way to avoid that happening is not to lend in the first place, of course, isn't it? So if you remember when I said piggyback for what you lack, the way to get this project funded would be to bring in a partner experienced in construction and to make them an equity partner, not just on a contract. What's the difference? Well, development finance lenders, in their experience, have seen that, relationships can break down and the person with the experience just walks off the job. Now, that's more likely to happen on a contract basis than if they're an equity partner with a shareholding in the SPV responsible for doing the project. So the answer for this guy to get into this 5-unit project was to get the experience sorted, and that was pretty easy because the other 2 partners that were inviting him in, well, they had that experience. So the lack of experience angle sorted, the next part is, well, what can you actually borrow? Standard terms on any development finance is 100% of build or conversion costs. It's always 100%. For a very simple reason. It's the lender's best guarantee that you're going to be able to repay them by selling or refinancing a finished product. Now, that's a much better option for them rather than you running out of steam and money before you finish the project. Now, if required, they can lend a chunk of the money to buy the site as well. Now, the borrower's going to have to cover the fees, and they are going to want some skin in the game or hurt money, to use a couple of phrases. They want some cash in up front so that they're not taking all the risk. Now, the reason that gives lenders comfort is a chunk of money in the deal is a pretty good way to keep the borrower focused on producing a successful project. Because if they don't, it's costing them as well as it's costing the development lender. With this guy that's asking the question, if his 2 business partners are each putting up $250, then the development finance lender is only being asked to lend the remaining $250 of the $750 purchase, which should be no problem at all. Now, as long as the other 2 partners are not insisting that the guy puts up $250 cash, then there shouldn't be a problem. But of course, there will be some borrowing costs on that $250, so there could be a discussion to have about the shareholding. In other words, instead of an equal 3-way split, they might want his share cut down to around 30% and they have 35% each, just to cover the fact that they're going to make a bit less profit out of it because he's got to borrow his $250 and they haven't got to borrow their $250. Nothing too onerous in negotiating a share split to keep all 3 parties happy. Now, the guy also said that this project gives great returns. Well, that's a subjective term, and the great return, well, who's going to decide whether it's great or not so great? Well, that's going to be the development finance lender. And as a benchmark, what they want to see is a minimum 20% of GDV, gross development value, as clear profit. You could call it net profit because it's after all costs and all fees and interests. So remember, it's a GDV of 3.5 million. Or 20% of that is 700,000, which means the project has to come in including price of the land, all the build costs, all the fees and the finance costs in at 2.8 million and no more. Now, if 700k is the minimum profit, in reality, it's going to be better if it's closer to $1 million because that gives a little more wiggle room. So bought, built, finance and fees for 2.5 million should be the aim. Now, profit of $1 million on a GDV of 3.5 million, well, that would be considered a great return. As with every development project, there's a need to do your sums. And whilst the build costs are going to be fairly fixed, the finance costs are going to be fairly fixed, the one variable is how much you agree to pay for the land. So it's important to understand all these costings and the variables within them to avoid ending up agreeing to spend too much buying the land. Okay, so that's my property finance video for this week. I'm going to be back next week with another video. Hey, see you then. If you enjoyed watching this video, did you know every Monday morning at 8:30 I do a live Facebook Q&A. So if you want to start the week with checking out some answers to your property finance questions, click the link here.